Hello friends and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now, last time we had started setting up automation of all of the things and massively increasing the scale of which we are mining and doing research, everything possible. But we have a long way to go. And as Rex has commented on this video, the factory must grow. Now, one thing I want to point out, I think we have been playing this pack entirely wrong. That's right. I think that what we need to do from here on out is focus on production. Everything needs to be automated end to end. This is the same mistake I tend to make in Factorio as well. I spend all of my time crafting things by hand, and that's just not going to work for where we need to go with this, with a massive volume of resources that we're going to need. So today we are building up our factory, and I think literally we're going to build up. I think that's the direction we're going to go with this. So we're going to be tearing down a whole lot of the infrastructure we already have here, picking a new spot probably a little further away, not too far away such that we have to reroute everything, and then starting to set up a bigger production area. So with no further ado, let's dive right in. Now, between episodes, I had been making up a massive amount of stone here. And the reason we've been doing a massive amount of stone is to have a massive amount of bricks. I think bricks are what we're going to use for our basic foundation of this next little structure that we are going to be building here. Now, I just want to get it laid out with bricks, and then I'm going to start using some of the other various blocks that we have here. Immersive engineering actually gives us a lot of really neat looking factory style blocks that we can use for building as well. Although it doesn't look like the immersive decorations are in this pack. But no worries, we still have a lot of interesting looking blocks to work with here. Okay, so in picking out our new home, I want to pick a place that's going to be rich in resources for us that's nearby. We've mostly tapped out the chunks that are adjacent to us. And looking here, it looks like we've got a lot of iron ore if we go over just a little ways. It looks like there's going to be some copper over here as well. That's just to the north of us. Those are the two main ingredients we want, that iron especially. Silver, again, same general location as the iron. We've got some tin just to the south of that we can tap into. Lead nearby as well. And nickel just to the south of that as well. So I think that spot right there we saw where the iron is centered, right here, is where we want to go aim for. So this one right here, the 5800 chunk, that's what we're going to target. That seems to be the best spot that's central to all of these. So let's grab our advanced ore scanner and we're going to start heading out that way. Okay, so I think this is the chunk that we want to be in. There's lots of coal, redstone, iron ore, silver, lead, aluminum, and I think thorium, uranium, all of those. Yes, so this is pretty much the perfect chunk for building. It's also built up on a hill, which gives us a little bit of space to maneuver. So we're going to chop down all of these trees and start setting up a platform right here in this chunk. And this is going to be the beginning of our base. Now, it's going to be a platform that's up high enough that we can move out on top of that mountain without any trouble. So we can just start going straight out to the west. Okay, so we've cleared off the mountaintop a little bit here to give us a nice, clean starting point. We also have some mountains nearby, which I think will make for some interesting visual texture and maybe a place for us to continue to grow and expand as we need. But for now, we've got a lot of room right here, and we're not too far away from our old base. Okay, so to get started here, we are just going to lay out just this chunk. I think just keeping it within this space to start, just so we can frame out the general shape of this base. Now, we don't have to keep our base within a single chunk. There's nothing actually preventing us, but for a lot of logistics purposes, having most of your main sections inside of a single chunk can be useful. Now, as you may recall from my video on Pneumaticraft, it's kind of critical for that sort of machining where things need to stay within a chunk to operate properly and not, explode. But we don't have Pneumaticraft in this mod pack, and I don't really know what other mods might be in here that do require single chunk mechanics. So this is going to be the general area that we want to start in, and we will allow machines nearby, but we're going to try and keep it contained to a central factory area that then expands in various directions. So the chunks that are loaded near to us will stay loaded, generally speaking, without needing an additional chunk loader of any sort. So that's the game plan here. Now, I cooked up a whole bunch of these stone bricks, so I can use those for our layout without too much trouble. I wish I had brought my builder's wand, which I also had from earlier in this pack, but I did not. So for now, just everything is going to get built manually, at least until I make that first trip back to the old base for materials. So ores are coming in this way, then that means our first lines of processing here for collections of initial ingredients should go in this general region. Maybe this is our initial storage bay. So let's start to mark some of these areas off just a little bit here. So we want to have an area where stuff is coming in. So we're going to go in one block on each side and give us a little more space just to maneuver. I think we're going to have that ledge running around the edges here. Nope, not like that. So something like that is going to start to frame up our foundations there. Then from the sides, we're going to want to make sure that we have plenty of room here to maneuver. So I think our initial blocks are going to come in here into some sort of a storagey space like this. And then that's going to move to the first lines of production, which I think are going to be relatively close, maybe a little closer than that. We do need about 3 blocks to run logistics. I do think that's right. So that's going to be our first wave of processing. We'll give it a little space, and then we'll have a second wave of processing. And so from there, we really are going to have to start building out this direction for thinking about where all those resources are going to go and into our secondary storage. So if this is our secondary production here, probably need at least one more row that's going to eventually come in, say, here. And now I'm thinking that if we move things around a little bit, we'll have enough room for all of our ingredients to get smelted in this direction as more ingredients grow. So I think that takes care of our basic structure for just processing. Now, I think we want to build a separate facility for research, which I think will be off to the side here. And then we'll also need a wing for our various secondary item production that we're going to use for research. So this building will be for production. And then we're going to go over, let's say, 5 blocks. Is that right? We'll go over 5 blocks and create another wing in this region, probably here, where we can start doing even more production. Now, research doesn't take up a whole lot of room, and we do want to give ourselves plenty of room to grow for research. But our researchers themselves, they're kind of small, really, in the grand scheme of things. So we don't need to have super huge research space at this point. We will want to grow it over time, though. So to that end, we're only looking at clearing out a small section of this hill for the researchers we know that we're going to build right away. So here we've laid out the basic frame of how our researchers are going to be put together so that we can bring ingredients into them and then route it where they need to go. Now, from here, we want to start building out our facility that's actually going to be building the ingredients that are going to go into the researchers. So for that, we're going to want to come over just a little bit and start building out another factory space. Now, it's about this point that I realized I had completely run out of stone. All of the stone that I had mined and turned into stone bricks was out. So we had to go back to our cobblestone generator and start generating a lot more stone to finish out this build. Thankfully, we had plenty of oak at this point, so we could definitely use that for our temporary roof structure. It just wasn't going to look as good as our main structure, and I was just going to have to live with that. And I think it's a fine sacrifice for now. I don't think it looks too bad, but we do need to go back and make this look a little fancier. Now, it's definitely not the fanciest build I have ever done, but for right now, we just need a box to put our machines in. And I think in that regard, this is an overwhelming success. Now I did then go back and change out the glass for the windows. I chiseled the glass to instead try these iron grates, which I think look a little more industrial factory than just plain glass, and starts to give that texture that I really want out of this build. Just a little something more. Okay, so with our 3 buildings done, it's time to now think about our logistics and routing to get our ores into these factories. Now, I do want to be somewhat consistent here because I know that this big building, the main building for ore processing, is going to grow both in that direction until we hit the mountain and backwards. So that means all of the inputs for ores and sorting have to come in through this front area. So that means some clever logistics routing under, around, through, next to this facility as we get our ores in here, because as we laid out earlier, we do want our first ore collection to be actually in this chunk right here, right next to it. So that's going to require some thoughtfulness in how we bring our belts in, back up and around, and into the front of this facility. Now, we're not going to worry so much about bringing in a whole lot of ore from our old facility and the old places that we had set up. We're going to let those go ahead and tap out. Most of them are already tapped out, so we're getting pretty close there in the first place. Hello, Mr. Sheep. But instead, what we're going to do is try to bring them in from this side. So instead of focusing on our old production facilities here, most of those nodes are already tapped out anyway. We are going to set up entirely new nodes over here. Now, I think solar is going to be our primary power for at least right now, which means tearing down our old solar array and maybe making a little bit more solar cells to put up here. However, the one sticking point here is that solar is just not very efficient for us. So we are going to have to look very rapidly at getting our steam boilers. All of this region right here is really what we need to start unlocking. With the shell of our factory built, it's time to now move our machines into it for ore processing. So I've got some energy conduits and I've got some level 3 solar panels that I've crafted up. That should be enough to get us started here. I would also like to make a capacitor if I have enough stuff, and I think I have enough to make a capacitor here. Maybe 2 capacitors. Let's see here. One of these and one more of these LV capacitors, and then I'm going to turn that into a capacitor bank. Okay, great. So now we've got some capacitors. That'll be our battery storage. So the real thing here we want to do is start creating our ore processors. So the pulverizer is going to be the first one in this step. So pulverizers, and that's going to effectively double our ores. We have most of the things we need to make that. So let's make a couple of pistons. How many pulverizers should we make? Should we make 4? Let's make 4. And then we need 4 machine frames. That's easy enough. We have a bunch of machine casings left over. Okay. We just need 1 more machine frame like so. And then all we need is our redstone coils. There we go. That's plenty. And now we can make 4 pulverizers. Wonderful. So the next thing we need are heaters because we're going to smelt down the pulverized dust. So we only need a couple of these. We don't need a lot of heaters because each of these can take 4 furnaces. Now, eventually we will switch those out for actual electric furnaces, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. So we just need, let's see here. How many is that? 2 will each heat 4, so 8. Great. And now the last piece of the puzzle here is item conduits. We only have 1 left because this is how we're going to move things around inside of the factory. We are going to need a whole lot here. This is a very big space we're setting up. I think most of a stack, more than a stack, is probably, we're going to use all these at some point. So we should go ahead and make them. Okay, just like that. Works great. So with all of these pieces in hand, the only thing left here is our conveyor belts. So let's grab up just all the various conveyor belts that we have laying around here. We'll grab our splitters, grab our fast conveyors when we can use those. We use our item routers. And then the only thing we're going to want to make here, I'm going to take a stack of those conveyor belts, is our extracting conveyor belts. So let's see, these are used to make extractors with a funnel. I think that's it. Yeah, there we go. So let's make a bunch of these too. Actually, I'd like to make more than that. So let's make a few more hoppers here. Just like that. And make the rest of these. So back here at our factory, we now want to start drilling for our new ores. So I'm going to run a scaffold platform across this gap here. These are steel scaffolding slabs, which basically are just half the size of our normal steel scaffolding, just to right about here, maybe 1 or 2 blocks over, because we really want the drill to be completely contained within this chunk. So let's say right here. And to make this real simple, we want our drill to be on the same level that we are outputting on. That will save us from having to make conveyor belts that go up and down to different levels. So we're going to plunk these down right here to make our drill. Good enough. So now to get our items out of the drill, we're just going to whack this slot and say this is where the output should be. We're then going to use these old-timey conveyor belts that we've got, at least for now. I think these are the right ones that we want, because I think the look of this is going to match our factory pretty well, and we shouldn't be getting throughput that's going to be higher than this. And the main reason I want to use these is there isn't a covered conveyor belt. Oops, looks like I put one backwards. There isn't a covered conveyor belt with the logistics conveyor belts that we've got. So these yellow and green and red ones here, if we look at these, there's no covered version. We can make them into escalators and we can make them vertical, but there's nothing else we can do with them. So we're going to use this instead because this gives us a nice little input to our factory. And this is starting to look a little bit like Satisfactory, and I do like the look of Satisfactory. So we are going to use our storage drawers controller along with some storage drawers to do basically auto sorting for us so that we don't even have to think about it. We're going to come out of the wall, let's say 1 square. That should be good. Maybe that's a little too far. We don't even need it that far. We're just going to go right here. And then we're going to put our storage drawers right down next to it, like so. There we go, a row of 8. So this controller will connect to all of these drawers and it'll just start auto sorting everything that gets put into it with no worries. So let's put our belt down here, and that should auto insert without us having to do anything else. So now we're going to go through and lock these, at least the first 3, just to make sure that we have consistency here with our copper and our iron and our redstone so that we can start routing those around. Okay, so now these first 3 drawers, it'll automatically insert the proper ingredients. We're going to go ahead and lock the others after we start getting more ingredients in, because we do want to make sure that these all are consistent. So those weird secondary ores that we are getting off of this, we do want to collect those, but we also aren't so worried about them for just yet. So as long as we're getting them in there, we don't really care where they go. We'll start dealing with those later. So let's put our generator on top here. I'm going to give it some coal. And in theory, if I right click with an empty hand on this side, there we go. This should start outputting as soon as I put the drill head on it. There we go. So there goes our iron. Now I think, I'm not positive, that when it gets to this inserter, it should go into the first matching drawer in the chain. That might not be exactly right. Sometimes storage drawers act a little weird as far as routing goes, but that should start giving us the stuff into the right drawer. And it looks like that is working for now, so that's great. Now, extracting. We're going to want to pull these back out and into our pulverizer. So this is going to extract here and go into a bank of pulverizers. So let's grab our pulverizers. I'm only going to do 2 for now. And I think what we'll do is use our item conduits for this. So I don't want them this way. I think I want them vertically, like this. Yeah, like that. We're going to use our item conduits to route, and we're going to use round robin routing for these. Round robin routing. Round robin routing? Yes, round robin routing. Always active, round robin enabled. So that should start giving these pulverizers these items. And we just tell it we need to insert here instead of extracting, insert here instead of extracting, like so. And in theory, that'll start pulling out of here. Always active, extract on green. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, except for that these do not have power yet. So that means we need to run power conduits. So to do that, as I mentioned earlier, the great thing about Ender IO cables is that they can go in exactly the same blocks as our item cables. So we can actually double up here and use these. That's super great for us. We're going to run the power up through the ceiling. And I think what we want to do is come in through like a corner or something and bring it down. Eventually this whole ceiling should all be power cables, or all be solar coming in, I should say. So let's knock that down like that. Maybe not through a corner for now. We'll just go ahead and go right through the roof here. We're gonna cheat a little bit and teleport up instead of nerd pulling up. And from here, we're gonna run our power cable. Now we're going to want to see here, if I remember correctly, solar panels connect automatically to each other and form a solid layer. So we don't need to run cables all the way underneath them. We can just put them straight on the roof. But I might need to tinker with this a little bit. So for now, we're going to go ahead and do this. So we are giving ourselves a gap. Now, the one thing I did not plan for in doing that is that I need a battery storage, which I'm going to build our capacitor bank. And I'm going to build that right below the ceiling. So let's just actually take out this block, like so. And here we take our capacitor bank that we had built earlier, put one of those there and one of those right next. Self-feed enabled. That's what we're missing. So we actually want to make sure that our pulverizers are sideways because you can't pull from the front of these. So I set this up a little wrong to start. We want to make sure that we're inputting from the left-hand side and we are outputting both of our ingredients to the right-hand side. And we're getting iron dirty dust in both of these, which is exactly what we want. Let's do the same configuration here, input here, nothing from the back, and then both of the outputs to the right. And again, the extra product here is always going to be iron dirty dust. Okay, so off of these, we're going to run our item conduits over a little further here to about this row, which we had marked off. There we go. And now we want to put our heaters down. So let's go up a little bit. And then our heater we want to be running vertically. So where did I put those heaters? Here we go. Heaters. And we want those right there. Okay, and now we can put our LV conduit there, and we've just run this conduit right along our item conduit. Up and over, there we go. And now the heater is going to get power. Now the last thing to do with this is to put down our furnaces. So we've got 8 furnaces. We're only going to put 4 on here for now. So let's put one here, one here, one here, and one here, like so. And now this just needs item conduits on top, so each of these will also get our items. So let's do this. And now each of these we're going to set to insert on the green channel. We can reuse colored channels right now because nothing is going to run into each other, nothing is going to conflict. So green channel, green channel, green channel. Perfect. Now that should pull from here. We're going to tell this to round robin. And we are going to enable self-feed there and always active. Same thing here. Green channel, enabled, enabled, always active. Perfect. So this should start pulling our items into these furnaces, which then smelt. Now, last step here is to get our items back out. So to do that, we do this, and we can just go and grab our wrench, like so. And I think if we, nope, shift click is not the right way to do that. Is it control click? There we go. So we're gonna want this to extract, always enabled. Same thing on each of these. Enabled, always extract. And last. Okay, perfect. Now we just need all of the items coming out of that to go somewhere. So for right now, we're just going to use chests. Eventually, we're going to have something more sophisticated, but a double chest I think will work just fine at this moment. There. Now we just tell it that this needs to insert instead of extract. And there's all of our lovely, lovely iron dust being smelted. So that is our basic setup. Now, like I said before, this row will eventually get a little bit more complicated because these furnaces will be replaced with electric furnaces. And here we will have some sort of intermediary processing, I believe, as well to increase our ore output. Okay, so I've duplicated that setup, so now we have pulverization of our copper as well, and that's then going into these furnaces here. You can see, if you kind of see this pattern, I've got 4 furnaces here for iron and 4 furnaces here for copper, and then I'm using the red channel for inserting for copper versus the green channel for iron. So these kind of nest into each other nicely, and then output here into our storage. Now, we want to take these various ingredients into the next chamber, and that means that we need to have that routed in there. So I'm going to take some steel scaffolding here, and I'm going to make myself a little bit more of our steel scaffolding slabs, just a little. And I'm going to route these ingredients down these routes here that I've started setting up into this new building. This facility is going to make our plates and our gears, which will then go to the next building over here, where we're actually going to assemble those into our ingredients for our research in this building. So these will all chain together very nicely. So here we are going to need to take our charged capsule for our metal press, which we had already set up. Let's go ahead and put that down there. I'm going to recharge it. We have a lot of extra ingredients here. So the first one here, if I remember correctly, the research, it's been a while since we've had to make these, right? This one uses iron plates and conveyor belts. And the conveyor belts, we need copper gears. So the gears we're going to make in one press, and then the iron plates we're going to make in another press. So one of these will do each of those things. And we want to be able to grow over time. So I'm going to give myself just a little bit more room here before I put down the second one. Put it down like that. And all we have to do is whack each of these to turn them into the ingredient that we need. So let's see here. That should be... Oh, nope, we need our morphing tool to stay as an engineer's hammer. So we'll just do that and we'll do that. There we go. So the first one is going to get our gear die. And the second one is going to get our plate die. There we go. So gears and plates. So copper is going to be the first ingredient here. So let's route this over here like so. And iron is going to come down the back side here and into this space. And then we're going to route those back up and out this side here. So back the way we came. So to do that, we do need to close these in. I guess I could leave these open like this. But I think here, I really want to use these covered ones. So let's use the covered conveyor belts. And we need 2 more covered conveyor belts, which is really simple. We just take our steel scaffolding and we put them over top of the conveyor belts. So let's put these down this way. Oh, those are the splitters. That's not what we want. This way. And then we take our conveyor belts and run them this way. Nope, that's still the wrong ones. I'm going to keep making that mistake. Okay, now we can't forget our order. It should match the way that we've got these laid out. So let's grab our extracting conveyor belts. And that's going to start pulling things out the second we put them on here. So we don't want to do that just yet. We want to lay out the rest of our belts first. Like so. Let's do that and that. And that's going to go here and then here. Okay, so those should stay separate. And then let's put extracting there and extracting here. Okay, good. And that's pulling out way too many. So we're going to need to figure out a way to not have so many being backed up here. I'll figure that out later with our conveyor belts. For right now, we can live with this. It's fine. It's fine. So let's go ahead and connect up our power, which I'm just running from the other building. And there we go. Now we're making all of these ingredients. So I think I'm going to route this one back here and back out like this. I think that's the way to do this. And then I think these are going to come around the other side for our gears, like so. Okay, so there is our finished setup for this bit of factory. Now, we are pulling way too many ingots. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to rate limit this, or to at least have them turn off automatically. I think you can do that with controlling them with redstone. So those assemblers will come into here through this side. Now, we just need a pass through for the steel plates, excuse me, the iron plates. The gears we're gonna wanna use and combined with more iron ingots, which we're getting off of there. So we're probably going to split this belt somehow so that it comes into this facility instead for our assembly. I'm going to have to think through the logistics of this for just a minute. And then these are going to go into auto workbenches. So we're going to skip over this with our plates and then straight into researchers here. And I think we're going to bring these in possibly on 2 separate belts. Maybe that's the way to do it. Okay, so I figured out all the logistics here, and this is a lesson in what not to do, I think, more than a lesson in what to do. Now, this looks really cool, having all the belts conveying all of our items all over the place, but it's not practical. Let me show you why. So here, this is where our copper and iron are being smelted and then output here onto these belts. Now, the iron is on the back and the copper comes down the front here. It dips down underneath and then goes back inside. Now on the left side, these are being punched into our copper gears. So that's being stored properly here. The iron is being split. So half of it comes on this side, and then the copper gears and the ingots go into the auto workbench to produce conveyor belts. And you can see this is already filled up. This is a lot. Now on the other side, we are making iron plates, and you can see there is a considerable backup. And this is what I mean by not ideal. Because there's no limitation on these belts, unlike in, say, Factorio or Satisfactory, these belts can just have an infinite amount of items just sitting on them, and they're going to despawn before they're actually going to get used. That is less than ideal for the immersive engineering belts here. I'm not sure if the regular logistics belts are any better, but that would be the next thing for me to try out. That being said, item conduits are really the way to go. These are the cleanest, simplest possible solution, and they don't overload. This is what we want to use, I think, moving ahead, because it's not going to cause us these same problems here. So I suspect as soon as I can, I'm going to tear all of these belts up and replace them with item conduits. That's really a much more efficient way to do this. Now, I am buffering my outputs here. So I have a storage drawer here to buffer for conveyor belts, a storage drawer here to buffer for iron plates. And then those are also being buffered a second time here, all the way in our building that's about to hold all of our researchers here. So iron plates here, or basic belts go here. And those are all going to get loaded into the researchers that'll go down here. So the next thing to do is build all of these researchers so I can start on the green research. Now, because of the way this is laid out, I'm starting to think that maybe here I also want to use item conduits. And again, I can just use color coding to make them properly insert into the proper chambers, and then make all of these probably just the green research. And then I can use this building to make everything that we need for the red research and pipe it back out into here. So green research will go down one wall, red research will go down the other. I think that's the simplest way that I'm going to get the results that I want here. Now, because my first drill that I put down does not get copper, I needed to find a copper node. And so I really liked this. I found a copper node on this mountaintop. So I went ahead and mined my way into the mountain, and now it kind of actually looks like a copper mine. That's kind of neat, or some other sort of mine. So I just have generators on top of both of these, and they're out of coal, which is why you're not seeing them produce anything. But this works pretty darn well for production. So I like this little pattern. I like being able to use the drills inside the mountain like that. So I'm going to top these up with coal real quick, and then we're going to get onto our research. Okay, we made up a mess of research capsules. I had made up some multi-block capsule bases already, so those are pretty easy with these machine casings, which are modularium based. So made 6 of these one-use researcher capsules. Now we just need to throw them down here. Oops, and it looks like I just rotated it 1,000 times instead of actually putting them down. So I'm gonna remove all this dirt. And let's see if we can't get this mocked up where we want them. So, like I said, we want them kind of here-ish. And there. There's all 3 of our researchers put into place. So, now we just need to insert our items, which we can do with item conduits. So, let's see here. Let's do like this all the way down. And now we just need to tell it how to connect. So these middle ones, we want nothing going on. Just like that. Absolutely nothing. The left one, we're going to do insert on green. The right one, we're going to do insert on red. Yeah, let's do that. Insert on red. Need to put these down for our items coming out. This we want to extract on red. There we go. And this will extract on green. We want to round robin this, self-feed, and enable. And same thing here, round robin, self-feed, enable. Now that should automatically start inserting into our researchers. And that looks like it is working just how we want. Every single one of these is getting a unique item. Now the only thing that's missing here is power, which is really easy for us. We can just drop our power conduits on top, again, using Ender.io, just like that. And we're just gonna run these on top all the way to the roof. Whoops, that's not the roof, that's the roof, okay. And over and connect up here. Yes, it's getting research processing happening, and that means it's got power. So now all we have to do is output our items. So we're gonna go ahead and output just like before. We're gonna use our cables. And I think we're just gonna set these down into a basic drawer right at the front, just like this. And that way we can keep expanding in this direction if we'd like. And now all we have to do is just tell it to extract. So always active, and always active. Let's make sure that we have self-feed enabled. Can't forget that. And in theory, that should start pulling our research out as soon as we tell it where to put it, which is here. And voila, we are already starting to get research. This is exactly what we want to see. Okay, I've topped off our researchers here and added 3 more, so we've got 6 going, and it's just producing a massive amount of logistics research for us. That's 168 already. That's a lot. And a whole lot more is on the way because we still have a bunch of plates and a bunch of belts, and more still being produced. So we can actually even increase this row even more if we want. Between episodes, I also think I'm going to replace all of these belts with item conduits. It's just not efficient the way that this is currently working, and I can't keep doing it this way. It's just a mess, and items are going everywhere. They're spilling over. This has got to go. So we're going to tear all of this up between episodes and re-logistic this out to be cleaner. Again, this is it's just pretty useless. But for now, I think that about does it for this episode of Enterprise Architecture. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.